Thank you, that was beautiful. And I really felt like you told a story, because this is so different from a waltz and a polonaise. I mean, a ballade is basically a story, and in the case of the Chopin ballades, it doesn't really matter what the story is. You know, like, it just matters that you're telling a story, because telling a story is very different from playing a waltz or a polonaise or you know, all the different other kinds of music that Chopin wrote. And just the idea that there's a narrative is kind of all that really matters. I mean, there are theories about that the fourth ballade may have had a story, but you know, if you think about how all of these start, they all start with a sense of where is it going? In a way, they all four of them start with a note, and sometimes the note's repeated, sometimes it isn't, but a note that could go in any number of different directions, right? And I think that's one of the opening of this is one of the most beautiful things. It's like if you watch one of those time-release things of a flower starting out as just a bud and then it actually becomes a flower. Mm-hmm. That's kind of this, right? Like, it's just like this, you know, from nothing, right? And I thought you did that just beautifully. It was great. So one thing I'd love to talk about is this whole idea of what to do with a phrase, what to do at the end of a phrase, okay? Because that's something I kind of noticed a lot throughout. A lot of musical phrases do a very obvious thing, which is they start at a certain dynamic level. And when I say phrase, I'm sometimes talking about melody, and sometimes I'm talking not exactly about melody, but what we would understand in music to be a phrase, a shape of some kind. And very often, it starts at a certain dynamic level, and it grows, and it hits a peak of some kind, and then it comes back, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you're playing a phrase in piano or pianissimo, it actually might make sense that that phrase starts at a very soft dynamic. Maybe it reaches as much as mezzo forte, and maybe it retreats back to piano, right? If you're playing a phrase that's forte, and you reach a fortissimo, it should retreat back to what? Forte. It should not retreat to pianissimo or piano, right? And also, there's a tremendous amount of musical strength to be had with phrases that continue all the way through to the last note and don't taper or disappear at all, right? So you have a very musical instinct that is getting in the way, which is that you're sometimes automatically tapering anytime you see that something is, you know, briefly coming to a close, right? For example, that is a very strong statement, but because this ends, you did something like that, which doesn't make sense in context. The dynamic is actually fortissimo. Throughout this whole section, right? And it's very strong and bold and a little bit in your face. And then this with all the accents, it doesn't make sense to do this, to do something like that, right? I think it makes more sense. And that's like a springboard, right? So let's try that one first, okay? Let's take another one. Sorry. is marked with a crescendo actually all the way through to the end. Of course it shouldn't be aggressive, right? I mean, the music isn't that bad. But you did something like this. Like you retreated because you think in those kinds of musical terms, but I'd like you to consider the alternative. You actually finish like that, which helps in how it continues. Can you try that? Right. And that you're actually voicing a little bit to the top note, right? And so there were a lot of those throughout, where I thought I would love, I mean, I think the one thing that would immediately take this to another level would be if all of your musical ideas remained strong throughout the whole idea, and that you had a more clear sense of lines that continue. Because one of the things that happens, like if you think about a good storyteller, a good storyteller is not going to have a lot of moments like this, because you kind of lose interest, you know? It's going to be a little bit more that you want to hear what comes next, and then you want to hear what comes next, and you want to feel that there's a connection between all those ideas. So here's another example just on this same page. This. I mean, that's a fantastic little sort of interruption in the left hand. Takes us all the way to there, which is very important as what we call a pedal point when a bass note keeps repeating, right? This piece is filled with pedal points, right? So, but I think when you started that, it was very promising, and then it just vanished. It just disappeared completely, right? And so it didn't mean anything. It didn't take us to the next sentence. Let's try that. Okay, so pro tip, less right hand, because it's covering your left, okay? Great, try it one more time and just a little more sound on that. Yeah, that's so satisfying. Okay, and that sets up the whole page, just having that low C. So that's like the number one thing I think that would make this better, is just, you have good ideas, you understand where the melodies are, follow through, okay? Let's start from the beginning. Left hand, follow through, left hand, follow througugh, and the right hand answers. So that's the first hint that there's going to be this kind of interesting rhythmic stuff going on, is this. And it sounds a bit abrupt. You want to leave us like that, okay? Good. And be careful about how you approach the whole. This is a very complicated thing for pedaling, but I would not be pedaling on the C because I don't want this, right? I want these to feel like two separate things, but I would pedal the F. Basically, you're going to have to pedal often. Like, rather than think about where's exactly the right and wrong place, yeah, there are a few right and wrong places. You have to be aware of harmonies and all that. Mostly I would just be pedaling often. Like your right foot should get tired, you know, after a couple of pages of this, because it'll be busy. Because you want to give life to the sound, but you don't want things to be overlapped. And I always like to say that you don't pedal with your feet, but you pedal with your ears. You know, if something sounds too dry, the next time use a little more pedal. On the other hand, if you're hearing harmonies blur, then you know that you did something wrong and you didn't change enough, right? So just, it's all, you know, listen and react to what you're doing. Okay, let's start from there. So I could hear a little more of a little more of, I mean, look, we literally have, and then we have in the bottom voice, it just keeps going down, I mean, all the way. You know, it's just constantly going down, which is a classic bass line thing to do, but it isn't yet a bass line, it's sort of more an inner voice, but it's, and then it just keeps doing that, right? Is that you don't want it to sound virtuoso and impressive, which by the way is an argument for doing it with only one hand, but I admit I use both hands when I play it too, so I can't say that. So, but you want it to have an elegant feel, not a punchy feel. Okay? Too much. If you realize that, okay, I don't want to start getting into giving you a huge harmony lesson, which I do with my students all the time, but A flat major, we're in A flat major. The whole piece is in A flat major. So what is this? That's the seventh, right? That immediately destroys A flat major and makes us think something's happening. So the G flat's important. And all this is, all that stuff I was talking earlier about don't flip a switch when a new thing happens. Try to make it organic and try to make it connect. And this is the same note, right? So if you could imagine, rather than, oh my God, a trill, instead, so it's just, so it feels like they're connected somehow, okay? You're negotiating that so well, and I don't want to get in the way of that, but if you can have a little more of it in the left hand while you're busy with that. Right? And then low bass, low C, that's a nice note to be able to play. And then it takes us right back to the opening of the piece, right? Okay, so can you do that? Let's go on to this beautiful thing. It's one way you could think of it is it's just like a wheel turning, and it's just because you want to have this feeling that it's organic, and you don't want it to sound rhythmic exactly, but more circular, right? Okay. of not quite defined in the same way. And I think they're talking to each other, right? So because it's at the end, you're playing it too soft, and that is a thing, right? So follow through, okay? Okay, so enjoy those. You know, that's the same as, right? I mean, they're all over the place, right? So enjoy those little moments. That they're like little gifts in the left hand. You know? Can you go from here? Always think of weight, heaviness, and now left hand. So that's 100% normal cadence into A flat major, our home key, right? And what? That's like shivers, right? Make it happen. Be sensitive to those things, because you know that that's a magical spot. Don't be afraid to, you know, really bring us along for the ride. Okay, let's go on to this next little roller coaster here. Okay, good. Very, very nice rearrangement. That's fantastic. This one, which you kind of have to do with the left hand, let's take a little more time over it. Like, plan to take time so that instead of being a panic, we'll actually hear the B flats to the B naturals. It's worth it, you know? And, or the C flats. It'll take like some practice to get used to that, because your right hand is dangling up there and you're like, suddenly have to worry about that, but it's worth it, okay? So take the time to practice it, that you play it slower and accurately, and without any sense of panic. Just add time to the piece, okay? It's fine. You're in a suspended high moment there. You can totally get away with it.
And it's okay to take it with the right hand. Right?
Sorry? Well, the first one, it's really easy to do with the right hand because the right hand's close. This one would require jumping down to do it, and it's, it's debatable, because then you've got a pedaling issue and you're trying to hold that note and everything.
Yeah.
I think if you play that with your right hand thumb, you may not get to that in time. But the earlier one, for sure, that works fine, just because your right hand is lower. I feel like this could start a little more hesitantly, and then when it picks up steam, it'll be a little more satisfying. You know, like when you get into all this stuff, and it's very passionate. This more, just slightly more elegant, Okay, can you try it? Okay, so you have a really nice thing here. This is one of those great Chopin moments. So, Leggero, you got it's your left hand thumb, see, or you know, thumb and two. See if you can bring that out. It's probably it'll be very confusing if you're not used to it. But. Yeah, so that's where I think it feels like it can start to take off. So we have. Can you start from there?
That's debatable. Let's go into this next thing. Can you do one thing for me, just as an exercise? Not that you would play it this way, but reverse the dynamics and play the right hand pianissimo and the left hand kind of mezzo forte. Okay, now can you do it again and play it the same way, slightly slower, as if the left hand was actually melodic. So imagine it's the tune, play it legato, and really make it super interesting, okay? Okay, great. Could you take a little bit of that into your interpretation of this, like a little bit of that interesting stuff going on in the left hand, chromatic and up and down and topography again, you know. And still, you know, yes, the right hand has the tune of sorts, which we've heard a lot. So we don't really need to hear, you know, it's just like, that just seems like that's the interesting stuff, actually. Okay, try it again and just see if you can find a good balance now. This one measure. Like, literally every time you sit down to practice this piece, you should start with that measure, okay? Because that measure you actually don't know, and all the other ones around you know really well. Okay, let's start from here. You need to be slightly more willing to do more back and forth, right and left, and it's going to be completely fine, you know. And your left hand seems really solid. I think it's just like it's getting in and out of those things. It's really understanding when, and also understanding like where to put your second finger if you're not using it to play. You know, you don't want it to be stuck. You don't want it to be slowing down your hand, like stuck here, and you're trying to get, you know. So take a little moment to analyze that. You know, that's one of those things that you can pretend you're a scientist and you're designing a robot arm,
that has little robot fingers, and you're actually writing the software to play that passage. You know, what does the software tell your fingers to do, right? And really think about all the movements very, very, very carefully. That could be like an hour of work, but then you'd really have it. Okay, let's keep going because we're getting near the finish line. Okay. Into the keys, because even though the dynamic is not loud yet, it feels very surfacey, and I'd love for it to be more, and also the tremendous amount of awkwardness in playing this, which is very easy for me to say, oh, more A sharp, but I mean, it's actually very hard to play. But if you have more pedal engaging all the notes, it'll sound fuller, right? Fun to play. Okay, let's go from, you're playing that in the wrong octave. Just that one note. Yeah. You jumped up and played a high thing and then you jump back down again. It's just there, okay? So can you start from, there? I want you to treat every note as important in here. Like the melody, of course, is borderline more important, and the bass octaves are borderline a little more important, but all the inner stuff is important too for the fullness of the sound. Because we are now really at the big moment, right? We're kind of there. So if you could just fill it all in, like that, okay? You want that kind of sonority to come out of the instrument. Stronger, right? Yeah. It's just there's no C, right? Yeah. Okay. Can you try? There's another thing. This, it is absolutely correct to take that with the right hand, but you're really rushing through it, and I'm not hearing ta-dum in the bottom. Okay. Can you try from here? Just take a little extra time in that bar. But I'm not hearing G-dum. Notice the difference. Here you have it in 2 octaves, and here you only have it in 1, but that's actually the important part. Okay, try it again. Yes, that's it. Yeah, you got it. Good. Okay, keep going. Yeah, okay, so this is, it's maybe just a bit weak. What I would do if I was playing that is, rather than play it legato, I would play it separate. so that I can play this, not with my finger, which is kind of weak, but with my arm. And I would play it with 3, 4, and 5 at once. Literally like that. Yeah. So you have really, whatever that is, you can really play it, okay? And you have to practice it so that you don't extend like I did the first time. The other option is, which I wouldn't recommend changing this in the next 2 weeks, but is to play that E flat on the right hand and then play it the low one with your thumb. But it should be strong. It sounds a bit apologetic. Yeah. Even if it takes a little extra time, it's kind of worth it. Okay. And then the last 4 chords are fine. So good. Thank you.